Welcome to this pilot launch of the GNC e-learning platform. My name is Angeline Grant and I work with the GNC coordination team as a coordination help desk and capacity development consultant. So first of all, I'd like to apologise for not switching on my camera today. My connection has been very patchy these past couple of days, so I prefer to keep it off to maintain the bandwidth. Supporting the delivery of this session today, we also have Vicky O'Donnell, who is Capacity Development Specialist for the UNICEF Global Cluster Coordination Units. And we also have on the call Ala Ivanov, who is Online Learning Specialist with the UNICEF Agora team. So today we're going to be exploring the new GNC e-learning platform and our plans for its pilot launch. And this e-learning platform is really a culmination of efforts on the part of the GNC coordination team to really unpack and operationalize its capacity development strategy that was initiated in 2019. So we really hope that this resource will become a valuable addition to your capacity development activities at country level. And as always, the GNC coordination team is available and ready to support cluster and sector coordination teams with regards to their capacity development plans and activities. So just to highlight that this session is currently being recorded and the recording along with the presentation is going to be shared with all the participants after the session. So the focus of today's session is really to introduce and explore the GNC learning platform and to discuss the pilots that we would like to conduct. So we're going to start off with a quick overview of how the e-learning project came to be and how the content was developed and how it's structured. Then we're going to take some time to actually connect to the platform and take a look at some of the learning content that's available. And then we're going to discuss the pilots and how you can participate. We're also going to highlight the support that the GNC coordination team and Agora can provide during this pilot. So we anticipate that this session is going to take probably an hour, no more than an hour, hopefully. And we'll have a question and answer session at the end, but please don't hesitate to type your questions in the chat box as we go along. Also, I'd like to maybe invite you to type your name and your job title in the chat box so we can also get to know each other. So I'm just going to take a moment to remind ourselves of how the GNC e-learning project came to be. The project was really born out of a number of different needs and constraints with regards to the existing GNC capacity building approach. So on the one hand, there was a high demand for capacity development and capacity strengthening with really high needs. We've got a cohort of more than 100 coordination team members and more than 400 cluster partners supported by the GNC, all with ongoing rolling capacity building needs. There was also obviously the COVID-19 crisis, which increased the need for coordination and IM capacities, particularly in countries where they were unused to coordinating an emergency response beforehand. And then also there's the aspect of the rollout at local level, which needs to be significantly scaled up to adequately support localization. And as we all know, there's also in our sector a high staff turnover, which means that demand is constantly being renewed. And so in addition to this high demand aspect, there was also the face-to-face training approach, which needed to be revised. So it was on the one hand too costly. It was costing us up to $100,000 to conduct a global level training. It was also unsafe. In the COVID-19 pandemic, obviously there was a halt on in-person trainings in many contexts. And it also had limited reach. Generally, there was probably a maximum of 25 participants per training. So this led to two concrete objectives. So the existing and increasing needs required a renewed focus on nutrition in emergencies, cluster coordination and IM capacity development. And that was to be worked on by starting with the development or the updating of the competency framework. So for NIE, it was an updating, and for cluster coordination and IM, they were developed from scratch. And then the limitations of the face-to-face trainings required the online approaches to be substantially increased and updated. So really this project, that was the rationale for the project, but it also built on previous experiences and achievements, and there was notably the previous NIE competency framework and the development of the HTP and the LSHTM DFID courses and the NATI project and all the training that Nutrition Works was involved in as well. So in terms of how the project evolved, this slide summarizes how the project evolved based on the needs that were highlighted in the previous slide. So in May 2019, there was the initial discussions took place on the need to enhance capacity building within the sector. And then in July 2019, there was the first consultation on the initial draft strategy, the V1 strategy, during the GNC annual meeting, during the NCC and IMO session, as some of you may recall. And there was an agreement then on the vision and an agreement to continue working on the strategy involving all the GNC partners. And then during the period October 2019 to March 2020, there was a mapping of the GNC partner and global clusters capacity building initiatives. And a really important step, the competency frameworks for cluster coordination and information management were finalised. Then in August 2020, when I came on board in this project, we created the NCC and IM Capacity Development Taskforce, many of whom are on this call today. And there was also the creation of the Taskforce for the updating of the NIE competency framework. And then over the period September 2020 to April 21, there was a big push to map out content and to develop storyboards for the e-learning content. So there was a really big effort on the part of a number of different people to create that content. And then April to June of this year, we temporarily hosted the e-learning content on the GNC website, and some of you may have already interacted with it there. And now, over these past 2 months, July to September, we've migrated the modules to Agora, and we've done some further testing and customization. So this slide highlights the GNC capacity building framework as it stands, and it helps to explain how the e-learning component fits into the broader capacity building strategy. So my apologies, this diagram is quite detailed. It's actually it's hard to make it any larger on this slide, so bear with me, but we can definitely, if you haven't already seen this, we can share it with you after this session. So the diagram illustrates the different levels of the framework and the approach. So there's a first introductory levels for individuals who've just started out as NCCs or MOs, who are first engaging with the cluster approach as a cluster partner. So these individuals benefit from an initial orientation with a dedicated GNC help desk, or maybe as part of a cluster orientation session, which is held at country level. Then the second part of the framework, which is the general level, and this is the area we're going to be focusing on today, because it's the part that relates to online learning, is the idea of providing on-demand e-learning through the GNC e-learning platform. So we'll take a look at this in the following slides. The third level is the advanced level, and this is still in the process of being defined within the team, but also more broadly. And the idea here is for individuals who've gone through the e-learning capacity building, then they would be mentored, and they may also participate in a simulation exercise, and they may also work on case studies. And then the fourth level, which is the master level, would involve participants becoming mentors themselves, so mentoring other people in a similar in this sector, in cluster coordination or information management. We've also hoping that people at that level would be able to deliver webinars or case studies, or provide input into the e-learning activities, and also develop their own publications. So this enables the sector to have a clear structure for professional development, and also creates a pool of qualified individuals for next level jobs. So in this slide, we're zooming in more detail on the general level, which is the level 2, as it's covering the online learning component of the GNC capacity building strategy. So here you can see how the e-learning project was conceptualized. So a learner would log in and self-evaluate their competencies based on the competency framework. There could also be an additional optional evaluation by a supervisor to determine what competencies need to be strengthened. And then the system would generate a list of suggested learning activities based on the self-evaluation. And then the learner would do the recommended online learning and then take the assessment. And if further learning is identified, then the learner would do that additional learning. And then there would be a final assessment, plus a light 360 from supervisor and colleagues, and then that would result in certification. And for those not seeking such a formalised learning process, we have also envisaged the possibility to have dip in and dip out learning content. So how was the content for the e-learning platform developed? Well, it was developed based on the competency frameworks for cluster coordination and information management that were finalised in 2020, and they finalised last year. And the initial focus of the content development was on the functional competencies of the two frameworks, so highlighted here in red. And these are the specific proficiencies required by cluster coordinators and IMOs for which there was no prior e-learning available. So as you can see, the competency frameworks also include sectoral competencies there at the top. So those are the competencies that relate to the sector, in this case, nutrition and emergencies. Also, we have the common competencies, so the proficiencies required for working effectively in a cluster. And at the bottom, we have the core behavioural competencies. And so these are behavioural competencies that support the organisational values and mission, so of UNICEF. We're in a broader process with the Global Cluster Coordination Unit to explore if we need to develop additional e-learning for those other competencies. But at the moment, we're focused on the functional competencies. So e-learning content was created for each of the 6 functional competency areas. And to support flexible learning, content was split into smaller, independent, bite-size modules. So this slide expands on how the e-learning content was created. So as the previous slide mentioned, the focus for content creation was on the 6 functional competencies for both cluster coordination and IM. So for each of the 6 functional competencies, there was a definition, there were behaviours and underlying knowledge and skills. So behaviours are listed at 3 cumulative levels, and then the desired behaviours were then translated into online learning modules, so covering key nutrition cluster processes and functions based on the HPC. And not all of the behaviours translated directly into a module. Some were amalgamated, some were broken down further. It was quite a flexible translation process. And the content for these modules was first of all mapped by the GNC coordination team, and then it was storyboarded by RedR UK or by GNC subject experts, specifically for advocacy, needs analysis and IM. And then the content mapping was reviewed by the NCC and IMO Capacity Development Taskforce, as well as other subject experts. And then the storyboards were uploaded onto the online learning software Articulate Rise. So this slide highlights the types of modules that have been developed over the course of the projects, and we're going to go into more detail into the types of modules when we actually tour the online platform. So in total, 69 cluster coordination modules and 50 IM modules have been created so far, with 10 joint modules between cluster coordination and IM. And there are also 20 plus modules being created or uploaded, notably on intersector collaboration, on emergency response planning, on the GF, on nutrition information systems, and on the DHIS2. And so the learning approach breaks down the different processes of the humanitarian program cycle and other core cluster functions into modules that are sufficiently detailed to support day-to-day cluster activities. And I mean, there's a large amount of modules, and the large amounts really reflects the need for detailed content that is short and is bite-sized, so learners can easily take it on board. And since the modules are standalone, though they do refer and link to each other, learners can pick and choose the learning that suits their needs and availability, so they can do the modules at any time, in any place, dip in and out. The modules are also consistently structured and organised according to the functional competency areas for cluster coordination and information management. So this means that learners can easily build their capacity in specific functional areas, so they can work through the modules, which sees them progress through cumulative levels of competency, knowledge and skills. So we've looked at how the content was developed for the e-learning platform. Another big stream of work under this project was the development of a platform to host the content. So from the get-go, the GNC was always keen to have an independent platform to host the e-learning content, both in terms of branding and visibility, but also to be able to incorporate certain functionalities like the self-assessment tool, the 360 option, and maybe further down the line having a space for a community of practice hub. So in late 2020, the GNCT commissioned a consultancy to define the platform requirements, develop a business case and hold a solutioning workshop. And this resulted in the adoption of a distinct GNC learning management system within UNICEF Agora, which features cluster coordination, IM and NIE learning channels. So the learning channels are further broken down into various pages, the module catalogue, the short courses and the learning pathways. And all of these modules were migrated from the GNC website to the GNC Agora LMS in July of this year. So then we did testing on the LMS, and the subsequent revisions based on the feedback were incorporated in September. And then if there are going to be additional changes based on the feedback from this pilot, we're going to incorporate them before the public launch of the platform in December. So just to highlight, even though the site and its content have been independently tested in August, there may still be glitches in the system. So this is why we're keen to pilot the content with our key target audience, the community of NCCs and IMOs on this call today. So before we jump into the GNC learning platform, we thought it would be interesting to run a quick poll to explore how different people approach e-learning. So this is an anonymous poll, and you can select as many responses as you like. So the question is, how do you approach e-learning? So do you like to take your time? Do you like to complete activities very quickly? Do you like a defined learning package? Or do you prefer to pick and choose your learning activities? Do you mainly access learning because it responds to your day-to-day needs with your work? Or do you access learning simply because you really enjoy learning? So I'm just going to launch that poll now. And we'll just take a minute to respond to that question and discuss. Okay, so we've got some interesting responses coming in. We've got quite a high percentage of people who say that they like to pick and choose their learning activities. So having that independence in your capacity building and your learning is obviously a very important feature. We've got quite a lot of people who say that they really want to access it to respond to their day-to-day needs. Also an important thing that's coming out, and hopefully the modules will be able to respond to these needs that are coming up. Yeah, defined learning package, and who also like to access learning because they simply enjoy learning. So that's all very interesting, and I really hope that the platform and the content will be able to respond to the needs that are coming through here. So now I'm just going to actually move to the actual platform. So just bear with me whilst I toggle between my screens. Okay, so now we're going to start our tour of the GNC e-learning platform. So we anticipate that the majority of learners will be coming directly from the GNC websites onto our learning platform, but the platform will also be searchable via Agora. So the majority of people will first come in through this GNC e-learning platform landing page. So it's a landing page. In Agora, it's also called a dashboard. So on this page, you have three channels featured. One for cluster for coordination, one for information management, and one for nutrition and emergencies. Given you have to log in to gain access to the page, it will be synced with your Agora profile, which you can see here on the right. And the right-hand side also features other dashboards. And we have a button for contacting the GNC help desk and one to return to the GNC website. And on the left-hand side, we have the different channels featured, as well as the status of the recent learning that has been undertaken. And when completing short courses, learners are also able to earn badges, which are displayed here in the bottom left-hand side. So I'd also just like to highlight, in terms of branding at the top of this page, we're also going to have it made GNC green, so external partners can view it as GNC rather than just solely as a UNICEF endeavour. So first of all, I'm going to click through onto the Nutrition and Emergencies channel. Oops, looks like I'm not logged in. Apologies for this. Just a second. Okay, let me just, there we go. So yes, the Nutrition and Emergencies channel features all the existing content related to the technical aspects of NIE program delivery. So these are the courses that I'm sure you're already familiar with and have no doubt already taken. But I just wanted to highlight that they're all easily accessible from the GNC e-learning platform landing page. So the idea is really to have a common e-learning strategy and approach for both coordination and technical competencies, which is why they're featured together here. So now I'm going to click back to the GNC e-landing page. And I'm going to click here on the Nutrition Cluster Coordination channel. So as we land on this page, you can see that you're going to see that it's a compendium of all the newly developed content on nutrition cluster coordination. So on the right hand side, we have the links that take us back to the GNC dashboard or landing page, the one that we were looking at earlier, and also the GNC websites. And we also have buttons, which allow us to toggle easily between the IM channel and the Nutrition and Emergencies channel. There's also contact. You can contact here, contact details in case there's need for additional support, both on the GNC side and on the Agora side. So to come to the main part of this page, you can see that there are 3 different buttons here corresponding to the different ways that we've organised the content on this channel. And I'd like to point out it's organised in the same way on the IM channel as well. So the first button is to browse all nutrition cluster coordination modules by competency area. So if you're familiar with the way the modules are laid out on their temporary home on the GNC website, this is a replication of that. So you would go here if you wanted to pick and choose your learning, looking to take maybe like 1 or 2 modules. So modules take anywhere between 15 minutes to 1 hour to complete, depending on the content. And I must say that's excluding external courses that might also be featured, notably the IPC modules. The second button is the option you should choose if you want to take a specific short course. So a short course is a compilation of up to 8 modules and would take up to a maximum of 8 hours to complete, approximately. And then the third button links to the GNC learning pathways. And these are a compilation of all the short courses for each functional competency area at levels 1, 2, or 3. So for instance, if you were interested in taking all the modules at level 1, then you would choose this option. So given the large amount of content, this could take up to 30 hours or more to complete, because we've got quite a lot of modules. We've got 69 cluster coordination modules and 50 IM modules. So a few additional points regarding this page. You may recall that we mentioned that a key part of our e-learning approach was to include a self-evaluation option for learners who like to have specific learning recommended to them. So this is still under discussion, as it's actually proving quite tricky to develop. So we're looking into and I'd also like to highlight this and should all be up and running. The nutrition cluster coordination.
Sorry,
yes. Did you lose me for a second?
Your sound is going in and out. I'm not sure if it's just myself that can hear you or if it's your connection there.
No, I think it's my connection, and so I really apologise, everyone. Yeah, I was just saying, if you're interested in taking a short course and earning badges, not all the badges are functional yet. So please check beforehand if there's a particular badge you wish to earn, or you can contact me to check as well. And badges should all be up and running in the next couple of weeks. So now I'm going to click through to the Nutrition Cluster Coordination Modules page. So if you think back to the slide where I was listing all the modules, and for those people who are familiar how they're currently laid out on our website, this is a replica of that page. So all 69 cluster coordination modules are here, and there's going to be more added soon. And they're all organised under each functional competency at levels 1, 2, and 3. So the levels correspond to the levels of the competency framework. So that's to say, the level 1 modules are primarily targeted at clusters, colleagues working as cluster coordinators in national or subnational clusters in non-complex environments. And then level 2 modules would be targeted at colleagues working as cluster coordinators in more complex environments in a national cluster or maybe a larger subnational cluster. And then the level 3 modules are targeted at cluster coordinators working in highly complex environments, such as a system-wide scale-up emergency or at global level. So as I mentioned before, the modules can take between 15 to 60 minutes to complete, excluding external courses that may also be featured. And just to also highlight that these modules are currently presented in English, but we plan to translate all 109 modules into French and Spanish before the end of the year. So in terms of layouts, yeah, we appreciate this isn't the most exciting layout and it's a bit bulky, but we decided to keep it this way because it's got an important feature, which is the ability to see which module you've already completed, which is here with this tick box. So I'm not going to go through all the courses that we have, all the modules that we have, because like I said, we do have quite a lot here. But just to highlight maybe the ones that would be topical at this time of year, notably conducting a nutrition cluster H&O analysis. We've also got developing a nutrition cluster response plan. And we've got mapping existing nutrition resources and budgeting for a collective nutrition response. So this might be of help for your H&O and HRP process. There are also a number of modules which will be added soon, including setting up nutrition information system and the intersector collaboration modules and the GF modules, the ERP modules and the DHIS2 modules. So say, for example, I was a nutrition cluster coordinator and I wanted to learn more about how a nutrition cluster response plan is developed. Well, I could select this module and I click through and I see the landing page for this module. I can see what the learning objectives are. And then I can click through to gain access to this module. I haven't enabled the pop-up, so I'm having to launch it manually. Just hoping it will load. There we go. So you're going to notice that the content appears in a different format to what you might be used to in other Agora courses. So we chose to go with this Articulate Rise software as it provides more interactive features. And we're really aiming to have a mix of interactive features, video, text, animations. In some modules, there's even audio snippets. So we really wanted to have a mix of different features in our modules. Another aspect to highlight is that there is no narration in these modules that we've developed, contrary to the ones that some of the ones that are in Agora. If you are returning to this module and you just want to review one section, you can scroll down. Like if, for example, you want to check the additional resources, at the bottom here. You can scroll down and come and have a look at that. Or you can just click through to start the course, to enter the module. So just start, and then you can see that the content, it's a scroll down presentation. So just to flag, it also might display differently depending on your device. And there's this helpful burger menu on the left-hand side, so you can always see how far you've got and what the next sections will be. And the modules always include a contents and an introduction, and at the end an additional resources section. And the core content is split into different lessons. So you'll see that there'll be a number of different lessons for each module. So you can also click directly to those sections if necessary. So you can always go straight to lesson 1. There we go. Yeah, and just to highlight also, at the end of each module, there's a very short evaluation, and then you receive a certificate of completion. So that's a brief overview of the modules and their layout. So I'm just going to click back now. To the short courses page. So here we go. So the short courses page features a mix of thematic short courses and short courses featuring all the modules for a particular competency area at a certain level. So there's a maximum of 8 modules per short course with an expected duration of no more than 8 hours, excluding external courses that may also be featured. And so all of these courses here use modules already featured in the modules catalogue, the page before that I had just shown you. So at the top, we see the 2 thematic short courses, which are the fundamentals of nutrition cluster coordination and nutrition cluster coordination in the context of COVID-19 and other pandemics. And then we have the short course example here. We have the level 1 short course in providing influential and strategic leadership for a nutrition response. So if I just click through here, that also takes you to the landing page for that course and its associated badge. There we go. Just to note, you're able to earn badges also through a quick certification path, but you can only have 1 attempt. So you are able to earn the badge if you already have good knowledge of this particular area, but there'll be only 1 attempt to be able to do that. And if you don't succeed, you then have to complete the short course and then take the assessment again. So, like I said beforehand, not all the badges are functional at this stage. So if you're keen to earn badges, just check the course page or contact me to confirm availability of the badge. So I'm just going to now go back as well. And we're just going to have a look at the nutrition cluster coordination learning pathways. So here are the 3 learning pathways for nutrition cluster coordination, and each learning pathway includes all the modules for that level of the competency framework. So this enables learners to gain certification in nutrition cluster coordination at levels 1, 2, and 3. So there's also a quick certification possibility here as well, as you can see, but you also only have 1 attempt. And with regards to certification, as I mentioned earlier on in my presentation, we're also planning to include a 360 function to provide full certification, but that's still being developed. And so given the large amount of content for each competency area, we anticipate that each learning pathway may take approximately 30 hours to complete, but it may take longer depending on the content. Some learning pathways are quicker than others. So that's the tour of the cluster coordination channels and buttons. So I'm just going to come here to the IM learning channel now. Now this IM learning channel is a duplicate of the cluster coordination learning channel. So we first created the cluster coordination learning channel and then we duplicated it for the IM learning channel. And it also contains 3 buttons where you can access all the nutrition information management modules by competency area. You can also take a short course in nutrition information management, or you can even take the full learning pathway. So if I click through to the IM modules, you can see once again a full list of the IM modules arranged by competency area and by level. And the same for the short courses and also for the learning pathways. And it's the same thing for IM. Not all the badges are functional at this stage, so do contact me for have a look or contact me with regards to their availability. Okay, so that's the tour of the actual platform. Just bear with me whilst I toggle back to my presentation. Okay, so that was the orientation that we just had. And now we're going to have an overview of, just a quick overview of the e-learning pilots and what it entails and how you can participate. So what is the GNC e-learning pilot? So it's a means to pilot the content and the functionality of the platform before its public launch in December. And we're really hoping the participants will be the NCCs and the IMOs and the other people on this call today who have an interest in e-learning. And it's going to run for 4 weeks between today and the 11th of November. And its purpose is twofold. It's first of all to gather feedback on the content and how it's packaged, so we can finalise the content and the platform design. And it's also for you to be able to use the new e-learning content for your staff development and to support in the processes that you're going through at the moment, if it's H&O or HRP. And we're using a blended approach, so we're going to have a combination of self-paced learning on the platform, and we're also going to have some facilitated sessions to support learning and gather feedback. So why participate? Well, it's an opportunity to meet your learning needs and access the latest content that might be relevant to you. And so like I said, we've got a wide variety of learning content available. We've really tried to break down the core cluster functions, the HPC, into modules that are short and easily accessible for people so they can support their day-to-day activities. It's also an opportunity to contribute to your ongoing professional development. So there may be topics or areas of interest which you may not be so familiar with or may not have been so exposed to, and you've been wanting to take maybe further, you've been wanting to explore them a bit more, so you can explore them now on the GNC e-learning platform. The pilot is also an opportunity to shape the GNC e-learning offer. So we're really very, very keen to hear your feedback on how the learning is presented, how how easy it is to access, whether the content speaks to your everyday needs. So this feedback will be extremely helpful to inform the modifications that we will do to the platform and content before it goes live to the public in December. So how can you participate? Well, in terms of how you can participate in the pilot, you can log in to the new GNC e-learning platform on Agora. And maybe, Vicky, you might be able to put the link in to the chat box now. That would be super helpful. And you can then select and complete at least one e-learning module within the next 4 weeks. Like I said, modules vary in length from 20 minutes to 1 hour. Yeah, for the purpose of this pilot, we're asking participants to complete at least one module, but you feel free by all means to complete as many modules as you like, to really get stuck in, to explore, to really engage with the content. If you're struggling to complete a module, or you have any functionality issues, or you'd actually like to discuss the content of a module, you're not understanding what's being presented, or you would like to discuss it further, or have maybe some further information, you can also attend the optional learning support workshop, which will be held on the 2nd of November. So that's an optional workshop. If you have any questions, if you have any needs, you can come to that, and we will be there to support those. So you can discuss any issues you might be having, and I'm going to be sending an invitation for that optional session after today's session. And in order for us to hear your feedback on the GNC learning platform and its functionality and its content, we would love to have your participation in the end of pilot workshop, which is planned for the 12th of November, so after 4 weeks. And that will really be an opportunity to share your thoughts and experiences and brainstorm with your colleagues on suggested improvements. And for those who are unable to attend the end of pilot workshop, you could also complete the end of pilot survey, which is also going to help us to gather feedback. So in terms of next steps, we plan to finish this pilot and gather feedback on the content and functionality from the community of NCCs and IMOs during the end of pilot workshop. And then we're going to use this information to adjust and edit the content and functionality of the platform. And in parallel, we're also working to finish and upload additional modules. As I've already mentioned, we've got ERP coming up, ISC, GF, Nutrition Information Systems, and DHIS2. And we're also translating all of our content into French and Spanish, and this is under a different work stream, and it's going to be completed by December of this year. And then we will aim to hold the public launch of the platform in December. So, as I mentioned previously, there's going to be this optional learning support workshop on the 2nd of November, where we're going to be responding to learners' needs regarding how they navigate the platform and access the learning content and complete and follow up learning activities. But during the course of the pilot, if you have any functionality or anything else, then please feel free to contact me on the address which is listed here. And I think you have my email address also from the invitation for today's session. So I'm just going to finish this presentation by saying happy learning, and we look forward to hearing your feedback. And we are now moving to the questions part of our session today.
Just before you go on, Angeline, just a quick question. The first link that I shared was where I'm redirected from, so Ala might be able to confirm, but I've shared a second link there. If you wouldn't mind, Ala, just confirming that it's the second link, that's the one that we need to use.
Yes, it's the second link.
Thank you.
Vicky, were there any questions in the chat box whilst I was presenting?
There's been no questions so far, Angeline, so if anybody either wants to put their hand up or just unmute themselves if they've got any questions, and if there's questions ongoing, then you can just type in the chat box and we'll call those up next then. Thank you.
No questions on functionality or content or any of the aspects I mentioned today, how the content was developed.
Just while there might be questions coming in, Angeline, I had just put in a clarification earlier as well in relation to the assessments that you had mentioned, that people will find questions throughout the modules, but they're not part of the assessment. They're just knowledge checks as you go through.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's a question in the chat. Sorry.
Yeah. Will non-UNICEF partners have access to Agora? Yes, you can definitely log into Agora as a guest partner. So that's not an issue at all. You can log into Agora without a UNICEF email. So this is definitely this platform. We're going to be having a public launch in December, and it's really open access for everybody. We really want to get it out to as many people as possible. So it will definitely be a resource for yourselves as well in terms of being able to share it with your cluster partners at country level. Were there any other questions?
No other questions in the chat. So if anyone wants to unmute.
So maybe I will launch the last poll.
And I guess just while you're doing that, Angeline, you had mentioned at the start, obviously the whole platform has been tested, but people, because there's so many links and so much information on there, people may come across a glitch or a link that mightn't be working. To please let Angeline know about that, because there's so many small bits and pieces. So it would be great just if you find anything at all, just to let her know. Thanks.
Yes, yeah, definitely. That would be so helpful, because as Vicky said, we did go through quite a rigorous process of testing all the modules and all the short courses and all the learning pathways, but inevitably I think there will probably be still a few glitches in the system. So do please let us know if you have trouble with anything.
Angeline, a question just in relation to how much time may need to be spent on the pilot. The only ask that we have of you for this pilot is to take a minimum of one module, to complete one module. And the modules vary in their duration. Some take 15 minutes and some may take up to an hour. The IPC modules are longer because they actually link out to the FAO external course. So that is really what we're asking of the participants of the pilot, so that they have an idea and an understanding of how the content works, and if they have any particular feedback with regards to how it's organised or structured, or the content, but also the presentation, or maybe the actual learning management system, how we've presented things. So it's, yeah, that's really what we were asking, what we're asking of participants for the pilot is a minimum one module completed. So you're able to provide us with a little bit of feedback, basically. Pleased to hear that that's okay. Thank you, Rahul. Any other questions?
Hello. Hi, Angeline. Thank you so much for the presentation. This is Christo Barkashi. I'm an IMO for the nutrition sector in Lebanon.
Okay.
So I'm trying to access the course, but it tells me that you don't have access to the learning activity at this time.
Okay, I think that may be a specific glitch on that particular link. So we'll we will check with Allah why that's happening in that particular instance, and we can grant you access immediately after this session.
All right, thank you so much.
Could you please share the link to the page where you get that error?
Yes, I'm sharing it in the chat.
Thank you.
Thanks, that's great.
And obviously, if there are issues with anyone logging on, just again get straight back to Angeline, and Ala will sort them out with ourselves. We'll get you all online.
Because we had definitely anticipated that there would be issues, so we're very pleased to be able to iron them out at this stage. Any other questions? I see, Abdullah, also you have a connection issue, so we'll also check that with Allah, no problem.
Yes, I have the same problem. I can't access.
Okay, yeah, we'll double check that with Allah.
Christelle,
Okay,
you should be able to access that page now. So if you can refresh and try again, it should work.
Yes, I will.
Can I just ask if somebody not from the project team was able to access any of the modules? If you tried now?
Just to confirm, now I can access. Before, no, we cannot access to information management page, but yes, for now it is open. Thank you.
Okay.
It worked. Thank you so much.
Great. Great, thanks, Sandra, for letting us know that you have access. That's good to know. Any other questions or thoughts before I launch the last poll? Okay, so the last poll is really to get an idea of who might be interested to participate in the pilots. So would you like to participate in the pilot and complete a learning activity on the new GNC e-learning platform? Yes, definitely. Yes, probably, maybe, I'm not sure. No, I won't have time. No, it doesn't seem relevant to me. Oh, great. I'm pleased to see that we're getting some positive responses in. That's fantastic. We'll just give a few, maybe just another few seconds if anybody else wants to confirm. Hoping to get up to the full number of participants on this meeting today. 23 responses. Okay, well, I think that's a good number already to have, and that's really, really helpful to get your feedback. And thank you so much for your engagement and participation in this process. And I was very happy to be able to present to you today the GNC learning platform, because it's been the culmination of a lot of different contributions from a number of different individuals, and we're really pleased to see it's online now, and really pleased that our community is going to be able to start engaging and interacting with the content. So if there are no further questions, I'd like to say a big thank you to Vicky and Ala, who've helped me facilitate this session, and a big thank you to all the participants that were able to join us today. Thank you for your interest, and thank you for your collaboration, and hope to speak to you again soon. So thank you very much and have a very nice afternoon.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Angeline. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.